Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today, we're diving into something really exciting, the delete HTTP method in a Spring Boot application. This method is super useful for deleting resources from a server. Ready to master this? Let's jump right in and get started. The delete HTTP method is used to remove a resource from the server. It's like hitting the delete button on your keyboard, but for data. So far, we've created APIs to fetch, add, and update employee data. But what if you need to delete an employee from your database? That's where the delete HTTP method comes in. Today, we're diving into designing the delete method, which will take employee ID as a path variable. If you're not familiar with path variables, click on the eye icon to watch our video explaining it. Here's the exciting part. If the employee ID exists in our employee map, we'll successfully delete the employee and return a 204 no content status in the response. If the employee ID doesn't exist in the map, we'll return a not found status code, letting us know the employee wasn't found. Alright, let's get started. First, open the employee service class. Next, let's add a method called deleteEmployee that takes employee ID as input and returns a boolean. Next, let's open the employee service_impl class to provide the implementation for our deleteEmployee method. Override the deleteEmployee method in the employee service_impl class. Here's what we'll do next in the deleteEmployee method. First, we'll check if the employee ID exists in our map. If it doesn't, we'll return false. If it does exist, we'll remove the employee from the map and return true. Now, let's implement our deleteEmployee API. Open the employee controller class. Spring Boot makes it easy to implement a delete API with two handy annotations. The first one is at delete mapping, which is specifically designed for handling delete requests. The second option is at request mapping with the method attribute set to requestMethod.delete. While both will get the job done, we'll go with at delete mapping for its simplicity and clarity. Add the path attribute in the at delete mapping annotation and include employee ID as a path variable. Great, we've got our annotation set up. Now it's time to create our method. We'll define a deleteEmployee method that returns void and takes employee ID as an input from the path variable. Now, let's call the deleteEmployee method from our employee service. If the employee is successfully deleted, we'll return a 204 no content status to indicate success. If the employee isn't found, we'll return a 404 not found status code. Let's start the application. The server is up and running. Now, let's open Postman and test our delete API. Before we delete, let's fetch the data for employee with ID 2 to see the current details. As you can see in the response, the details for employee ID 2 are displayed. The name is Sham, he's 25 years old, and he works in the QA department. Now, let's create a new HTTP request in Postman to delete the employee. Select the delete method. Enter the URL, localhost, 8080/employee/2 to specify the employee ID we want to delete. Finally, press Enter. The response shows 204 no content, which means employee ID 2 has been successfully deleted from our map. Let's verify this by trying to fetch the details for employee ID 2. This time, you can see there's nothing coming up for employee ID 2. That means it's successfully deleted from our map. Our delete API is working perfectly. What happens if we send employee ID 10? It's not in our map, so let's see how our delete API handles this situation. We got a 404 resource not found response. This means that the employee ID 10 doesn't exist in our records. Our delete API is working as expected. Let's quickly recap what we've learned today. We implemented the delete HTTP method to remove an employee from our database. We saw how to handle both successful deletions and cases where the employee ID doesn't exist. Thank you for joining me in this tutorial. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. In the next video, we'll dive into exception handling and learn how to customize our error responses. Stay tuned for that. See you next time, and happy coding!